pulling back, trying to snipe off some of these probes, but got to be so careful on these medevacs because they do get auto-targeted above all other units. So if you do have medevacs floating at the front of your army and your opponent just 1A moves, it will be targeting those medevacs, which, you know, really sucks. And it looks like someone was lagging, and of course, as a polite gentleman, look, HuK says out, and what happens? Genocide Run immediately leaves. I love it when observers do that, when they're very manner and accommodate the players. So HuK's having to pull back and play nicely and defensively. But I didn't want to talk about this little 4 gateway mix, because we sort of get used to these numbers in Brood War, because everything is just so standardized. I mean, it's just clear, you know, if you looked at someone's 2 bases and you saw 13 gateways, you would say, you built too many gateways. You need to have fewer gateways to have constant unit production. About 3 of those, 3, 4, 5 of those are total waste. But let's think about that number that we normally see on 2 bases for Protoss. About 6-ish gateways. If they're doing some sort of bigger 2-base timing push. Which lets them move out and then take an expansion. You know, so 6 gateways and they move out and attack, or, you know, Abisu style 4 gateways and then expand kind of quickly with some cute Templar play in there. We see those numbers and we kind of take them for granted. They just sort of seem to work in the build. But what ends up happening is once Terran players start really harassing a lot, Protosses will realize, wow, I can't actually get 5 gateways as fast as I used to. Because, for instance, when I early expanded in StarCraft 2, I used to get like 5 or 6 gateways, and I was pretty much fine just defending with that, you know. Or excuse me, I was pretty much fine constantly producing off those 6 gateways. And then I started to play games with a lot better Terrans who started to harass me, even doing the obnoxious, like, Raven throwing an auto turret behind your mineral line. And I started to realize I could only support 5-ish because I was having to move around so much with these units. I was having to position well, keep spotters properly, and even then some harass would get through. So that's about how I could sustain myself. And now I'm starting to be like, well, man, if they're getting really aggressive and you're wanting to expand, then 4 gateways is pretty much all you can sustain if you're making mainly stalkers. And it's like these numbers start sort of surface over time, and it's exciting to me to see that HuK was on these unit-producing structures, and then when he expanded, he was only able to get these 2 more because of the amount of aggression he was dealing with in regards to these medevac drops. It just bodes well for the evolution of the game. And I think this is something to be aware of. Not necessarily something you should change in your play, not necessarily say, well, I'm making 5 gateways on 2 bases, I should be making 4. Instead, you should just say, I need to be aware that potentially, I'm not, I'm getting a little bit overeager. I'm getting a little bit too production happy. And here it looks like HuK just chrono boosting all his unit producing structures. Here comes another big drop here, and oh god, look at that. HuK just target firing. Oh my god. Ugh, taking that one out. And here comes huge move, and this, I remember when I first saw this game, I said, you should not be attacking that many sentries with this many Marauders. And here's an example of why Marauders are not the best idea against sentries. Shazoom! Oh my god. And look, even putting more here, first layer might seem very normal. Second layer might seem excessive, but in reality, it means that these guys in the back are completely not participating in the battle at all. Look at them, just sort of wandering. And then here's the kill zone, very much so like in the movie Land of the Dead. Just eating up an entire row. And look at that sudden change. Look at that huge shift, 93 to 54. That might be my favorite part of the game. Not because I'm trying to be like a HuK fanboy, but like, yeah, I got him, all right! But what's so exciting about that is that there was a lot of back and forth. The Immortal drops killing stuff off. All of a sudden, the Medevacs whipping back to kill some stuff. They even got to Immortals, almost killed the robotics facility. Pushing going on by both players, a lot of rotation, but their foods were staying pretty even. And then all of a sudden, whomp, you know, it means that the game actually has that nice fragility to it. And really, it's fragility that makes for an interesting game. The idea of, ooh, if I screw up a little bit, I could get decimated. If I walk my Marines into lurkers without scanning, I will get demolished. If I am not looking at that Reaver when it shoots at my worker line, I lose all my workers. And it's just, huge sort of loss. And whenever there is that sort of fragility, you need to have players who are good at maneuvering in these sorts of really, really complicated situations where you have air units going all over the place, you have these warp prisms, you have huge movement all over the place. So it definitely makes me very, 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 very pumped up for what is to come. So I think that it's a little bit difficult to argue that having a 40 food lead on your opponent is a bad thing. And also, one thing to note about this fragility, if there is fragility, it means the potential for comebacks is available. Because if you can do what Mu was doing this game, not sacking a factory for not the biggest reason, but, you know, if you're able to pull off these gigantic medevac drops to get in there, kill off stuff, and then run away without getting killed by stalkers, that's huge. And look, here's a Viking even moving up here. Going to be able to shoot a little bit at the probes, but at the least be very, very annoying. And Mu staying up on the high ground. Always a battle. Do I want to move down here so I don't get force fielded and lose my expansion? Or do I want to stay up the ramp and stay defended, but not really have control over my ramp? Yeah, that's what's the worst feeling ever for Terran, is losing control of the bottom of your ramp. Look at those huge Guardian shields protecting everything. Sentries are just so an amazing unit to do against Terrans. I might even just start going like Sentry Zealot. Screw Templar, those guys suck. But anyways, HuK in a commanding lead, but this is a dangerous spot for an army to be. If you kill this off, and then just one of these medevacs lands up here and does some damage, you're in trouble. And the Viking, look, in that entire battle, did 8 kills, and most of those are going to be on probes. Is there an observer or a warp prism coming? Yeah, it looks like a warp prism's coming, but still 8 kills in the midst of this huge battle is a huge deal. And note that Mu wasn't exactly able to produce out of this reactored starport. Still think it could have been just a regular old normal starport. And look, there's the first scan that I've really seen this game. Mu is really low on everything, and then is trying to do this little desperation drop here. Is going to try to unload, but oh! Just accidentally loses one. So after a very intense game, looks like HuK managed to get that huge lead with this battle there, and then after this one, looks like Mu is down the tubes. So, you know, a pretty short game, but a kick-ass game, right? That game was awesome. And it really just goes to show that I think, it goes to show my opinions. No, I think it's a great example of how there are increasingly more advances in the general state of the game. How in this game, 2 big things that I noticed. One, you don't quite have free reign to just leave your base. And that is something that is pretty prevalent in a lot of the matchups. It's like, okay, so I walk outside my door. There's nothing here to tell me I can't do that. Cool. And in Brood War, that was totally not the case. Someone always seemed to have control over the middle. And we're seeing it rise here. The capacity for really, really, really thin defense. Some amazingly timed force fields getting thrown down there. Also, the medevacs dropping, and the way that they dropped and lifted up meant that there was almost no damage being taken by the Terran. He was only losing 1 or 2 Marauders and then retreating, but he was killing 1 or 2 Immortals and probes, so that's pretty sweet. So I will happily take some questions, just maybe 5-10 minutes or so, because again, it's getting a little bit dark outside, so that means giganto explosions. So Kedera says, Day 9, don't you feel that Mu's constant aggression lacks a sweet spot to tech or expand? Yeah, but I think that you can go 3 barracks and get a starport to make some medevacs, and still have enough money to expand. You're kind of required to be aggressive in order to make it okay, but I don't think that you're screwed by any means. It definitely slows things down a little bit. But especially in these positions, I don't see anything wrong with getting a super fast dropship, because then you can drop him super fast, right? And that's going to be really effective, and then retreat and all that good stuff. I think tactically it makes sense. If we were playing on something like Metalopolis and we were cross-map, I think that Mu's play would have a lot of trouble. And, you know, I generally say that there are 3 different kinds of builds. One is straight up early expand. Like, let's take Protoss. 1 gateway, and they make Zealots against Protoss. Okay. Protoss makes 1 gateway and Zealots against Zerg, and then makes a Nexus, and then a Forge for cannons, and then does whatever. Straight up early expand. Or Terran, just 4 barracks, or makes a command center with the expansion and 4 barracks and a bunch of bunkers. You're just taking the expansion. The second general type of build is the straight up aggression, which is really what I would call Moose style of play, where you have some sort of one base set up, and you're trying to do a lot of damage with that. And generally with those, you kind of get all your stuff going before you expand. Like you get your barracks, your upgrades, and your starport. You have most of your tech completed before you expand. And there still needs to be that timing where you do get the expansion up eventually. But the focus is ramp up the aggression and never let go. And the last one is these do a push and then expand. So, I'm trying to think of what is a really easy example. Oh yeah, so something like doing a very fast stalker play against Zerg,